And with that, I want to introduce you officially, Peter Jones of the UK. He is a historian. Peter, where can everybody find you on social media?
I guess a couple of Twitter handles, but the best one I guess is Profoot History at Profoot History, and I'll be tweeting stuff out there. A lot of Packers stuff, a lot of general football stuff, retweeting a lot of history stuff. But that's the best place to get.
Yeah, and everybody, please go out and follow Peter. He is such a great knowledge source. He's a great follow, and anytime you're on Twitter, you can get pulled down into the doldrums of the cesspool, and you are a bright, shining light, Peter, and you make me want to be a better person on Twitter. And with that, let's talk about one of the greatest Green Bay Packer players to ever put on the uniform and just passed away last week. Number 5, the Golden Boy, Paul Hornung.
And Paul was everything that he's reported to be. You know, he was the carouser, the hard drinker, the chain smoker, the womanizer, the great friend. But he was a great football player as well. And it's easy to get caught up in the off the field antics, which were absolutely there, and all of those things and much more. You know, his friendship with Max McGee, maybe we'll touch on, and how Max led Paul astray or Paul led Max astray, whichever depending on which one of the two you spoke to. But you know, when it really came down to it, when it came time to play football, Paul was a great football player. And you know, we think of him as that running back in conjunction with Jim Taylor and those great Packer teams, particularly the early 60s, you know, the sweep, 49 sweep in particular, which Vince put in very much for Paul. But not just a runner. Great receiver out of the backfield, kicker, could pass the ball in the halfback option. And one of the things that gets so often overlooked is one of the greatest blocking backs, probably certainly in Packer history. And people, I think, often forget this. The same with Jimmy Taylor to a degree, is that sweep play, whether it was run to the right or the left, required the other running back, so either Taylor or Hornung, to block down on the defensive end. So almost every other play, one of those guys was blocking a defensive end. So you'd imagine one of today's guys asking Christian McCaffrey, for example, to do that, or even Aaron Jones or whatever.
Yeah. And Paul Hornung back then was 6'2", 210 pounds.
Right, and one of the interesting things about the size thing, and this goes back to a conversation that I had with Red Cochran. So I pulled the book out, some of my notes that I had from speaking to Red, and he said one thing that people don't realize about, or didn't realize about Paul Hornung, was he was just about the same size as Jimmy Taylor. So although one was designated a halfback and one a fullback, they were pretty much the same size. Now, different body shape. Yeah. You know, Taylor was one of the early weights guys, muscular guy. Well, you know, Hornung's ideas of weights was probably how many beers he could get down him, or whatever it might be.
12 ounce curls.
Right. But yeah, and you know, Red said to me that one of the things about Hornung was he wasn't fast, but he hit that hole and found the hole and was so elusive that, you know, they could run that sweep play, and then the favorite play they had was the 41 trap, which they ran a lot down near the goal line. And and he said, Red said to me, in terms of an all-round back, Hornung was the best that he ever saw and ever coached. Yeah, and Red coached with the Lions in the 50s, Packers all the way through the 60s and into the 70s. So, you know, it's pretty high praise, and we know how Vince felt about Paul, and yeah, it's just one of the truly great all-round running backs, could do it all on and off the field.